All right, welcome again to our Candid Conversations. This is where we get to talk with veterans in the media industry. We started out with the former DG of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. Today, we have another veteran with us talking about the MD of Jams FM, Mr. Femi Sowoolu. You're welcome to the Daily Report.
My pleasure, Ify.
And good to see you after a very long time.
Thank you.
All right, we're talking about broadcasting as it is.
Okay.
I'd like to understand what you think about the standards that we have today. Many people have complained about the falling standards. What is your characterization of what it is that's happening today?
That's well, from where I'm coming from, it would be fair to try and be fair and not discredit all that has been done.
Yeah.
And I wish I could fit into that line of thinking. But unfortunately, it is not as... it isn't where some of us predicted that it should be at this point in time. Once in a while, you see things that make you happy. But most of the time... Okay, let me put it this way. I find it very difficult to listen to radio these days. And that is a fact, because I either get bored or get disillusioned, or something just happens that just puts you off. And I don't think there's any point getting to specifics. But what we have on ground these days definitely cannot be what the founding fathers wanted it to be. Having said all that, one would say that yes, there's always room for improvement. But like I keep on saying, you can only learn if you want to learn. And I find it very difficult. I find most of the current presenters we have around, I find them very difficult to accept that there is need for them to learn or to become better at whatever professions that they are in. Having said that, heck, who knows? Things could change tomorrow. Digitalization should have improved or made things easier for everybody.
Yeah.
It seems not to be so. It seems that instead people are getting lazy. But the rules will always remain the same. I say that all the time. The broadcast rules haven't changed. Digitalization should make it better and not allow us to retrogress or become lazier at our art or doing things that we should be doing. So, having said that, is it better today than it could be? Oh, the technology has definitely improved. Things that you can do on the radio stations have maximized. But the performers, are they any better? I don't think so.
All right, the essence of the conversations that we have with people like you is to take us way back, because you have no idea where it is you're going if you don't know where you're coming from.
True.
Now let's talk about when you came into the business or you came into the profession over 4 decades ago. What was it like?
Oh, then you had heroes. Then you had people you looked up to. Then you wanted to be better or as good as the idols that you came into broadcasting for. When I was a very young greenhorn, budding announcer, I had some names fixated into my head.
Names
that
like?
Mike Enahoro, Alex Condi, Tunji Marquis, Benson Idonije, so many of them. And even abroad, I listened to a whole lot of foreign radio back in the day. There was DLT, David Lee Travis on the BBC. There was a bunch of guys at a station called Radio Luxembourg, who used to come on air in the wee hours of night between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. I never slept because I had to listen to them. Brian Aldis. There was what's his name now? Colin A or something like that on the Voice of America. You know, we admired these guys and we wanted to be better than them, or at least as good as they were. Perhaps today's broadcasters still have their idols, but what do you like about them? How are you imbibing those things that you learned from them? And you must have idols, you must have icons, you must have heroes, people that you believe in, and you want to. And I was privileged to have worked under him directly, the late great Tunji Marquis. I used to carry his bags up and down. and we worked a lot back in the day on radio. So I learned almost all I know in this job from people like that. The serious side of broadcasting, that was more of entertainment. I had a boss called Yomi Onobolu. Oh, I learned so much from him. There are people all over the place that I wish I could just... The question should have been, did my generation groom people who came after us?
That's the question.
I guess some of us did in our own little ways. I don't know if we handed over to the right kind of people or if Nigerianism took over, which is a term that I definitely did not originate. But if you know what I mean by Nigerianism, the Nigerian factor we call it.
The Nigerian way of doing things.
Which has affected all sectors, no matter what it is, medicine, the law, legal matters, administration, engineering, whatever, you know. And it has also affected broadcasting, so to speak. One would have thought that with the emergence of private radio stations, things would have gotten better. But unfortunately, Nigerianism affected that too, in that those who granted licenses gave most of the licenses to politicians. People who, in my belief, are not deserving of owning radio licenses. Because radio is a niche, it's people don't like it when we tell it, but it is the truth. Radio is a mafia. It's not an all-comers affair, you know, and unfortunately that has been spoilt, and that's the reason why we have all sorts of voices hitting us from left, right, and center who don't even know their tenses from their... I want to be as fair as I want to be without being abusive this morning.
Okay, so it brings me to content, because you've just talked about it, voices now and all of that.
Yes.
Being on radio, is it just about having a good voice?
It's important to have a voice that is good. What is a good voice? Yeah, you go through your audition and you're probably judged on the quality and texture of your voice, which is good. But a good voice without the knowledge, without the content, is totally, absolutely worthless. And I hear many broadcasters who have great voices who really can't go to the next level because that is all they bring to the table, a voice and just a voice. Throughout my career, I always hated it when I got to a function or I met some people who had just met me for the first time, who had heard my voice on radio and say, here comes the voice. I hate that. I always rebelled. I never liked just being called the voice, as if that's all I had, just a voice. No, you want to be more than just a voice, because you are a personality. Well, usage of the word personality brings up the OAP syndrome that they call themselves these days, on-air personalities. Let me tell you a story, Ify, that I don't think I've told anybody before. We originated the term on-air personality. When I say we, I mean back in the day when we started. It was myself and JAJ, Jacob Akiemi Johnson. I actually think the terminology belongs to Jacob Akiemi Johnson. Jacob comes to meet me. He says, Femo, Baba Femo, he used to call me. Baba Femo, what do you think? What should we call ourselves? We're just setting up the station then. And we start putting on our heads. And I think, well, in RN2 back in the day, we used to be called DMs because that's when we started rebelling. Understand that radio had moved into it had become automated. Not digital at that time, but automated, in the sense that the announcer or the presenter handled his equipment by himself, as per what it was before, whereby you had an operator in the other room and the announcer stood in the announcer's room or sat in the announcer's room, and the operator controlled all the equipment. But when rhythm started, as a matter of fact, when RN2 Radio Nigeria started, you had to control all the equipment by yourselves. The music, your microphone, the commercials, which were through, what was it? We were using then cartridges, I think. The technology has gone so far. So we thought about it. From Disc Motivator, we can't call ourselves Disc Motivators here. Then it just come, how about on-air personality? And I said, yes, that's brilliant, Jacob. Let's call ourselves on-air personalities. So it started from rhythm. But our thinking of what an on-air personality was then was just somebody that was more than an announcer, more than just a presenter or an announcer, but a personality, which means that you are a personality. And to be one, you have to be worth your salt. You must have some knowledge at the back of your mind. You're not just a voice. You're not just an announcer. You're somebody who's on air to share information, to help society, to lead the way, to show the way forward, to spread knowledge. That is the meaning of personality. A good bunch of those who call themselves OAPs these days have no personality, not to talk of being an on-air personality.
So when we talk about people who have no idea what it is, talking about the job and they're ascribing all sorts of titles to themselves, who should be blamed? The people who are ascribing these titles or the persons managing these stations?
Well, I would prefer to cast the blame at the individual, because you have to decide what you are, where you want to be, how you want to be referred to, how you want society to see you or respect you. Ask yourself one question. If I leave this job today, will I be remembered? What will I be remembered for? Just as a voice or as a personality? That would solve the answer. Your answer would find a reason for you.
Brings us to content on radio. So many things are going on different radio stations today.
Yes.
What is your impression about the content that they're churning out?
Mostly the same. I can hardly tell the difference from station A to station B times. Forget the fact that they use all these American terminologies to describe themselves these days, which again is something I think is alien to us. Classic, smooth, beat, rhythm. It's all music. It's all about music, and that's the laziest form of broadcasting, if you ask me. To just sit down with music and use that as they all sound the same to me. When we first got to Ibadan, as a matter of fact, as I sit here today, I'm totally disappointed from the impression of stations that I get in Ibadan. They all sound the same. They all copy each other. They take an idea from this station and they duplicate it. Everybody does the same thing, and they all, I don't know. So when we started our station in Ibadan, we decided to be different, to do what I call real broadcasting. I've always believed that the broadcast policy of this country should be changed. I've always believed in what I like to call a developmental policy that I think needs to be enshrined in Nigeria's broadcasting. You might think it's too far gone now, but we can always bring things back. What is a developmental policy? Broadcasting has to be an avenue whereby we can educate Nigerians. So as our case is right now, re-educate Nigerians, re-engineer Nigeria back to what it once was. If everybody is playing music, who gets the lessons? Who learns the knowledge? The talk radio stations are just doing phone-ins. I don't know. There's little knowledge from them. Hard to listen to, if you ask me. So I don't know. There needs to be some form of policy whereby we can teach things that are not being taught in schools, like history, for instance. Nobody knows anything about Nigeria's history anymore.
Well, many will say to you that if they go this way that you're talking about, advertisers might not come.
And that again is part of the problem. You see, we're allowing the advertisers to determine what goes on radio. It should be the other way around. Advertising cannot determine what you need to tell your people. Advertisers have to find a way. We've allowed things to rot for so long is why this is happening. That's why the advertising man will sit down in his advertising office and tell a radio station, I want you to do this. That is not how it is done. It's the other way around. You buy into what the station is doing. You know, that's where where things I think got messed up at some stage. Like I rightly said, it's something that affects the entire gamut of Nigerian society. And if it affects one, it will definitely affect the other. That's the way it's going.
Yes. I know you as a person who's, you always prepare for the programs.
You must.
Why does it seem that some people find it difficult to prepare or write scripts to go on air? We keep talking about script writing. what is the essence of having a script before going on air?
Having a script before going on air just does one simple, easy thing. It makes sure that you do not make a mistake. It's as simple as that. When we write scripts, the idea is not for you to start reading from your script. The simple knowledge that you can get from that is the fact that, and I learned this as a very young, I must have learned it in either primary or secondary school somewhere. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I've learned that once I write something down, I never forget. It's the easiest way to keep something in your memory. And that's why teachers used to tell us, take notes. Because once you write something down, I don't know, there has to be something to do with the process of writing and memory. But once you've written something down, you hardly ever forget that thing that you wrote down. And that's what scripting does. It gives you a template. It gives you something you can draw on. You've written it down, so you already have that, photo started into your memory for any watch reason. But just in case you veer off topic for any single reason during your conversation, you can quickly glance down at your script and you're back online.
So how important was it in your days as a DCA?
I've never gone on air without a script. Never, ever, 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 ever gone on air without a script.
In the last 4 decades?
All my life. My entire career, I have never ever gone on air without a script. And let me tell you what I do. When I prepare the morning shows, some people just thought I was just too whatever. Sometimes I have a week ahead of programming scripts ready. So all I have to do the following morning is just type to the date on my computer and it's all there ready for me. Everything I need for that day. So I prepare like a week or 2 weeks ahead. So I'm never bogged down with work. As soon as I finish today's program, you bet you I'm going to my office to make sure that tomorrow's program is ready before I shut my laptop. And I won't sleep or rest until I've done tomorrow's program and it is ready. Just so you don't have to work overnight. And your mind is fresh in the morning. And everything is already done and pre-prepared. But like I said, sometimes even 3-4 days, 1 week ahead. You've always got to be ahead of the curve, as people talk these days. So you're prepared, you're ready for no matter what. And it's even easier when you do interviews. Make sure that all your questions are ready. Never go for an interview and start asking the person, may we know you, sir? Because you must have done your homework into that person. So when you're introducing the person you want to interview, you're already telling us about that person. So where does the may we know you, sir, come in? That just simply shows that you didn't do any homework. I went to TVC. I once worked there. And I tried to stop the boys from doing it, but they insisted that I should come for an interview. And I was trying to help them. It's not easy to interview me. Who is going to ask the questions? They say, you like one young lady. And that's the very first question she asks me. Me that I worked for 3.5 years as boss of Radio Continental. And the first question that you, a staffer there, who wasn't there while I was there anyway, asked me is, may we know you, sir? I think I tried to hide my disappointment, but I don't think I did very well. Because I felt my head just shaking like this. Oh dear, oh dear. How do I answer this one now? I must have taken like 2 or 3 minutes before I could answer. I didn't know how to answer her.
So is it laziness on the part of the interviewer, not going out of your way to find out about the person you're trying to interview?
If it's not laziness, it must be stupidity. I'm sorry I'm using that word. I apologize for it, but it must be a lack of self-respect, because it shows you don't even like yourself for not at least trying to. You are meeting I'm not a god, but heck, you're meeting a Femi Sowoolu. You want to interview a Femi Sowoolu. If I was going to interview give me one good name. Who was the last person you interviewed?
Mr. Ben Egbuna.
If I was going to interview a Ben Egbuna,
or Dr. Christopher
or
Kolade.
Dr. Christopher Kolade, you bet that for the last 7-8 days I wouldn't have slept. I would have made sure that everything is correct.
Now, tell me about your colleagues, because sometimes people need to hear these things to understand that the job they are doing, people have actually done it before. There's nothing new under the sun. Let's hear about some of the people you have some memories of, people you worked with, the kind of things that you did while you worked with these people.
Oh, so many of them. There are so many stories. I would just say pick up a copy of my book and read it all there. But there are so many. Even some of them are still colleagues today, friends who we started this journey with together.
And what do you talk about when you meet, when you take a look at what's happening today in the industry?
Well, if it's been long since we last meet ourselves, the relationships are more personal. I'll be very candid with you. We find it very difficult to discuss today's standards because there are hardly any good stories coming out of there.
Are you disappointed in some
That's what
of
I'm
the
saying.
things
Yes, yes, there are hardly any good stories coming out of there. I can't take one wave of the hand and just dismiss everything I hear these days. No, definitely not. There's always a shining light every now and then. Once in a while, I'll hear someone that I am impressed with, and I'll be surprised that, wow, that's impressive, and that comes out of my mouth. But not so often, and not as often as I would want it to be. When we do meet, we hardly discuss broadcasting because there's hardly any good news coming out of there. Having said that, we got beautiful. Each one of us has beautiful, lovely stories. I will candidly tell you, Ify, you don't want to go there because some of these stories I can't say on air, but they're wonderful remembrances. Boys must be boys, and but with all these things, we made mistakes too along the way. But the happy thing is that we all learn from our mistakes, and we still remain friends till tomorrow.
Now, management and control is a very big issue when we talk about broadcasting.
It is.
How much would you say that it has affected the practice?
A lot, a whole lot. It's perhaps one of the major reasons why things are not where they should be these days. It's all back again to the round holes, square pegs, or square pegs, round holes theory that people talk about all the time. Gatekeeping is not being done correctly well. Some managers just really haven't been the right people to manage in particular situations at various stations along the way. I've always preferred having a manager who grew up through the system, who was a performer, no matter what department it was, But if you grew up through a system, it means that you understand how it breeds, where it bleeds. You understand all the necessary problems because there will be potholes. But by growing through the system, you understand where to identify all these problems and you quickly checkmate it. It is pretty difficult bringing an outsider into broadcasting. Remember I said it's almost like a mafia? So if you're coming from the outside, you won't even understand all those tactics. But if you're from within a system and you are asked to lead in that system, of course you'll perform much, much better. And most importantly, it is essential to keep personal convictions out of broadcasting. And a lot of managers do that these days. They get personal on issues. I don't like that person, so I'll start victimizing that person. But you can't do that on radio or television. It's not that. That's not how it works. You got to believe, you don't have to like everybody, but you all have to work towards the same goal, right? After your shift is over or whatever is over, you can go back to
being enemies.
being enemies. But once you're on air, you just have to be friends. You just have to be friends. There's something that most people don't understand. When you are on radio particularly, because they don't see you. But because they don't see you, the listener can always notice a smile in your voice or an angry person. So when you're angry, it shows, it tells in your voice. You can't camouflage it. You can't, right? When there's a smile in your voice, the listener will hear it. And you know what they say about smiles. Once one person smiles, the whole community smiles. So that's how you can spread goodwill around, right? So enmity, you're human. You can dislike things. You don't have to like everybody. That's understandable. But don't bring it to the studio. Never. Never. Never carry any baggage with you inside the studio.
So, still talking about management and control as it is, When you look at it, sometimes people have the will. They want to do things. They want to do the job right. But you have that manager that is breathing down your neck and saying to you, you cannot do this. What do you do in that instance?
Well, you have to obey your management. I mean, obey your management. If you can't find a way to sit down with the boss and iron things out, I would advise that you iron things out. What if the boss's advice is the right advice? For instance, it could be, you don't know. Don't disobey. I wouldn't advise anyone to just disobey, But at the same time, find time, maybe after you've done that job, to meet whatever the manager was and prefer another way of doing things. Why don't we look at it this way? A good discussion always, if you don't have any personal beef between you. And if there is any personal beef, for what reason would there be any personal beef? I agree. I've had bosses who never liked me in my career. Oh boy, we've had some nasty fights. That is true. But in hindsight, I think we were all, me and the other people I'm talking about, I think we were all just a little bit naive and stupid back in the day. Because looking back at it, there was no need for any friction really, if all we wanted to was to get the job done. That's all I'd like to say about that. Yeah, there will be frictions between managers and subordinate staff. It's a battle that the staff cannot win. So find a way around it. Yes. The manager will always win.
Now, for people who are thinking, or people who attend auditions for jobs on radio,
yes,
not too many understand what it is. Not too many understand what it is that employers are looking out for. What do employers look out for when they audition and they want to employ persons on radio?
I'm smiling. I started to finish that question because I've had many instances whereby people tell me these days when I conduct auditions, and they all come in with these very, very funny accents. And then I query them, you can't even tell me your name right. You're speaking your name in some American or Scottish slang that I can't even understand. And then they tell me, that's the way they ask us to sound, sir. And I said, who? He says, the people who are asking us to come for employment. They say we must have an accent. And I said, since when? So I think that's the new norm. I don't understand it. I don't know why they do that. Are they speaking to Americans in Nigeria? Or British people in Nigeria? You're speaking to Nigerians. Is that how Nigerians speak? So let me throw the question back at you, Ify. Maybe I could throw it back at your audience. Why do people prefer employing people who have foreign accents? Who are they communicating with? The Nigerian? Definitely not. And I'll add something to it. And I think this is standard. You see, the spoken English, the very well-educated Nigerian, is better spoken English than any accent from any part of the world. Examples? Wole Soyinka, Christopher Kolade, John Momo, Mani Onumono. I'm trying to come. Bimbo Oloyede. Who speaks any better English than these people? Late Bola Ige. If I go to the north, you can Google it if you don't know about it. Balewa. Even Abubakar, what's his name? The head of the NPC in the north. Have you ever heard these people speak English? No white man speaks. And I add your name to the list too, if you're on Yegbule.
And Mama Nika.
On. Do they have accents? No.
They don't.
Learn to speak like that and you're 100%.
What is the place of training for young persons who are trying to get into the profession? Because when you look at it today, it's become an all-comers affair. Everyone jumping in.
Again, we come back to gatekeeping and that position of auditioning. That's where you cut off the wheat and the chaff and the wheat, so to speak. But people are not doing their jobs. Everybody comes in. I don't know. But standards have to remain the same. We've talked about good voice. You also have to have good diction, right? You have no place in a broad tenses are haphazard. Okay? Pronunciation can be taught. That's why you need to go through the training.
We have to lose our identity because we need to pronounce words like the British.
You don't have to pronounce words like the British, you just have to pronounce them correctly.
That's right.
That's all. Correctly. Period. Even our own traditions have to be pronounced correctly. Reading a new script and there are all kinds of Nigerian names there that you've never met before in your life, what do? You ask questions. Ask people around you. I've asked correct pronunciations from the least person in my organizations all through my career. Gatemen, cleaners. Not too long ago, I went to meet my cleaner. Folake Kiloruko, you know, how do you pronounce this local name I'd never seen before? And she helped me. And then I tone marked it. You have to also learn how to tone mark. And it's pretty easy.
The way it is pronounced.
So that you don't forget as you're reading. You learn that. You don't want to see a news bulletin that Femi Sowoolu has just read. I will scatter your bulletin with all kinds of markings. Because you got to learn breath, you got to learn how expressions, because most writers don't know how to write, so most news comes out in long sentences. But you can't read them like that, or you lose breath. So you've got to find your own pauses. I use double lines for my pauses. I use a single line for my short pauses. You're not following commas and other, you have to make your own. Tone mark for pronunciation and stuff like that.
Now that you've talked about tone marks, it just took my mind to someone, Momo Kubanji.
The master.
How do you remember him?
I'll never forget Momo. Never, ever forget Momo. Momo is my standard of broadcast journalism. That's the elite position that any broadcast journalist can aspire to. Be like Momo Kubanji. Momo won't sleep. Momo lives and breathes in the newsroom. And he did that to the detriment of his own health, as you know his story. But he was perfect. I'll never forget a story told me once by a former boss of mine, former boss of yours too. Momo Kubanji was a reporter. This chap was a commissioner at the state government. And Momo wanted something out of him, something very urgently. Momo calls him around 7 a.m. And the commissioner was in the bathroom, having his bath. And his phone rang. Soap all over his face, soap getting into his eyes. And he picked up the phone. Of course, he had to answer Momo. The commissioner himself told me this story. It wasn't Momo who told me the story.
Live on air.
It was live on air. Commissioner told me the story of how Momo Kubanji harassed him till he had to tell him even more than he wanted to tell him. Just because he wanted to get out of the bathroom and get this Momo off his case. Momo was that impulsive, that good. And Momo never went on air without a script. Never. All his questions were ready.
There are no heroes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
True. Yeah. What about it?
Tell me about it. Why do you think there are no heroes?
Quite a number of reasons. First and foremost, heroes never called themselves heroes. We called them that. They did those things they did just because they felt that those things were important to do. They didn't do those things to become heroes. They never knew they were going to become heroes. Those who died in heroism and those who did not. They just felt that this is a service I have to do, I'm going to get it done. Hook or crook, no matter what happens, rain or shine, it just has to be done. So they never did those things to be called heroes. They just did those things because they were the right things to do. That's most important. And that's why I said there are no heroes. And that comes to the second argument for that fact. Don't do something because you're waiting for accolade, or you want praise, or you want to be mentioned or remembered for it. Just do it because it is the right thing to do. People ask me about governance. And I said, governance is the easiest thing in the world to do. They say, what do you mean by that? You can't be saying that. I think it's easy to become a head of state or a president or a prime minister. I said, yes, it is very easy. Then what do I mean? Employ the best people surrounding you. And all of you together, do what? Do the right things.
As it is.
Simple.
Okay, that book is something that anyone in the media, broadcast journalism, of course, in that industry should have. Do you think that the people will have today, the young persons will have today in the business, do you think they read?
No, they don't. Sadly, unfortunately, they don't. And it's more unfortunate for the fact that they have a quantum of tools that enables them to imbibe knowledge, to get knowledge. But still they use these tools for the wrong things. They're the ones with social media. They're the ones with mobile phones. They're the ones with gadgets left, right, and center. Google is available to them. In my days as a young broadcaster, there were no books anywhere. You had to go find a library, and those libraries did not stock broadcasting books anywhere. There were no books on broadcasting. There was nowhere to learn from. You had to teach yourself or tag somebody, carry somebody's briefcase up and down, become a pain in the neck to that person, get knowledge by force, drill it out of them one way or the other, just becoming annoyingly, attached to that person.
Just because you want to learn.
Just because you want to learn. These days, pick up your phone. One pin will answer any question you want in the whole wide world. But do they Google? No, they don't. They're on Twitter. Sorry, Instagram. Because I think that's one that I'm onto social media too myself. It's not as if I'm that old of an old schooler. But I use social media for knowledge. That's all I use it for. Each of those things, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, has an advantage and a disadvantage. You have to understand how to use each one for your own advantage. And that's what I do. I use Twitter to get knowledge. My Twitter feed is full of knowledge. I use Facebook to share knowledge. I don't do Instagram much because I don't like photographs. Why should I take a photograph? I don't believe in photography much. I like it as a profession. I shoot things of art, nature, stuff like that. But I'm not into personal photographs. I'm not that kind of person.
So has social media done the profession any good as it is?
Oh yeah, social media has been so good for the profession, right? Yes. Profession is a word. Yes. Now, for the individual in the profession, it's something else. It's been advantageous. Digitalization generally is a huge advantage to the media industry.
It's helped in fueling fake news also.
Well, it depends. That's a totally different topic by itself. This thing called fake news, because at a glance I can identify what is fake and what is not. Why do so many people find it difficult to do that? At a glance, first read, I know. So there comes the knowledge. You've got to have some intelligence yourself to know. And I'm not joking about this. At a glance, I know what is fake, what is not. And all people should be able to, grow that inbuilt prevention, or whatever you want to call it. It's easy to know. Once you see a post that has grammatical errors, there's something wrong with it. Or a tiny issue with date or whatever, it's so easy to know what is fake and what is not.
What's fake and what is not.
Yes.
Okay, so of course I came up with something. How did we get here?
Yes, it's a lovely book. How did we get here? 25 mistakes that radio presenters must avoid. Okay. I'm glad you found out 25. I'm sure there are a whole lot more than 25. But these are pretty good. I've looked through the chapter listings. I am very famous. A lot of people think that. I used to be like that. And it was a lesson I learned, must have been in my first or second year as an announcer at the state radio station in Abeokuta. And my boss then, Ayodele Sulaiman, I think we had this meeting, and I was thinking in my head that, oh, I'm so good that why would people hate me? Everybody likes me. And then he told me, Femi, don't make a mistake. He said, not everybody thinks because you have fine voice, people just like you. No, you'll make enemies. For that reason alone, you have enemies. I didn't understand at first what he was saying. It didn't take me a couple of months to understand. When I started, of course, there was no social media back in those days, but you would get hate phone calls. And I quickly learned my lesson that, of course, you're not the only person in this world. And you're not there for yourself. We're only alive for others. It's a lesson that we learned. I am a brand. Definitely everybody is a brand. But are you a good brand? It's a challenge you have to ask yourself. I know everything. Nobody knows everything. Only God knows everything. You cannot correct me. That's the easiest way to get into the sinkhole. You cannot correct me. If you keep on saying that, you'll be making mistakes and nobody will even tell you that you're making a mistake. So you're just going to drop. You can't get any better than that. I don't need a mentor. We've talked about that. Everybody needs a mentor or mentors. I've talked a lot about all my mentors. Everybody who I have respected in this industry and beyond have been my mentor. I've mentioned some of them before. Not all of them could be mentioned. Everybody's favorite mentor, of course, is Nelson Mandela. One of my unsung mentors was Bola Ige, late Bola Ige. Just for the one meeting I had with him, once. It was an interview we had back in the days of the old, what was it now? Was this the Second or the Third Republic? I forget right now. Anyway, he was one of the progressive governors, they called themselves back then. And I went to go interview him at this event that they had at, what hotel was it now? I can't remember. And then I asked him a very dumb question. Young buck like I was then. Why is it that, why is it that you progressive governors came together for this meeting? And then something like that. And then he answers me back. Young man, you didn't do your history. You didn't go and read. If you had gone to read, you would have known why we came together. And you don't need to start asking me stupid questions. I took it badly. I said, this man just yapped me like this. It was very hurtful and very painful. But he was right. A couple of newspapers from about a week ago or so, and I would have asked a better question. So in hindsight, looking back at myself, and the following morning, I reconstructed the question to myself, because they are long gone. And, okay, since you guys have now identified all these issues, and you have now come together, what is the plan moving forward?
So it boils down to preparation. That's
what I should have done. Preparation. I didn't prepare. And I went to go and make a fool of myself in front of the great Bola Ige.
And that stuck with you?
I've never forgotten. That's why he's one of my heroes and one of my mentors. The station is nothing without me. The station is you. Without the station, there is no you. The station made you. You've got to respect that station. Popular by phone calls, that's a great mistake that most people make. Thinking that, oh dear, somebody get that car. That's a mistake that most people make. Thinking that the number of phone calls you get identifies your popularity. If you listen to phone calls on a daily basis, you will find out one thing. The same callers call every day. So what does that do to your popularity? When it is the same people that are always calling you. Such that some people even already know who is calling before he calls and you start mentioning their names. Ah, Mr. A from Shogune, that is you. I know, we've been expecting your call. So phone calls, look, the caller will just call.
Message, says Femi Sowoolu, quintessential broadcaster, engaging and refreshing interview. You remember him?
I'll never forget Jika. Jika is a good person. Jika is a really good person. Thank you, Jika. Thanks, Jika. Jika is one of those unsung heroes in this industry who decided to branch out and tread the dangerous dark jungles well before a whole lot of us did. And he's conquered. I'm really proud of him. I respect him. And I'm sure the whole lot of people have learned from Jika. Jika,
Mr.
fantastic.
Robert father also says...
Robito!
A good wine still tasting you.
Robito, me and Robert were together at Radio Nigeria 2, Martin Street, back in the day. Yeah. Robito! I think he's in Ikorodu now. He's a big boy.
And Adiola Diogun is also reaching out to you.
Yeah.
That way. So, you were taking a look at some of those things.
Yes, and I was, it's not a mistake, it's my style. I don't understand what is style.
You mispronounce a name, someone's name, and you go, I hope I got that right.
Nah, you don't say that. You know, that's disrespecting that personality, that person's name who you just mispronounced. Make sure you get the correct pronunciation. And even if you come close to it, that person will know that you made a good attempt. Okay? I hope I got that right. It's pretty disrespectful to the owner of that name, even if you got it wrong. Always the lead anchor. Who says? Anybody can lead. Anybody can lead. Well, of course, it all boils down to preparation. In preparing, you know who should lead. But sometimes, perhaps something just happened all of a sudden, and you quickly have to set up studio and all that. Whoever starts, does there even have to be any lead in the first place? In dual presenting. I don't see any reason for anybody to say I'm the lead. No, it doesn't matter. Just present. Just present and have a smooth show. That's the most important thing. Vacation not for me. Then you grow old before your time. Off air for a day, never. Same thing. You need rest. You need peace. The mind has to rest.
But what if I go and someone else takes my place on the job?
Yeah. So what? So what? There's so many places to be taken. This is the air. You know how many stations pop up every other day in Nigeria? Come on. It wasn't set up for you alone now. I can just walk away. Bye-bye. Money is everything. That's a mistake that a whole lot of young people make these days. Money is nothing. You see, you've got to be able to... I don't know if I'm... Look, not everybody can be like Femi Sowoolu. I understand that. But you see, once you start giving money all the accolades in this world, you will lose, you know, the beauty that surrounds you that is not linked to money. Money is nothing. That's my philosophy in life. I've never had any respect for money. Never. And I found, not that I don't need money or I don't like money, but you see, if you put money first, you'll be blind to that's around you that will naturally make the money come towards you. Do good first, and then if you be surprised, money is not everything. In fact, like I say, money is nothing. That's what I hope my wife is not listening, Sha. I can't control my breath. Yes, you can. It's exercise, training. You learn how to breathe in and out and do breath exercises. I hope you teach them that these days. There are breath exercises that you can take that improve your breath, especially if you're a newsreader. Newsreaders need that most. All right? Especially with all those long sentences. Who cares about timing? Yeah, that's a Nigerian talking there. We don't respect timing in this country. I'm very un-Nigerian in that respect. I'm a stickler for timing. At most events that I have to attend, some masters of ceremonial duties that I always do every now and then, I found out that I'm usually always the first person to arrive. Even before the organizers, I'm there. because my 8 o'clock is 7:30, and I can't change. Just before you guys came in here this morning, the owner of this place, a friend of mine, we were just discussing the issue. Everybody knows that Femi will always be on time. I don't know how to. I don't know how to be late. No, it's part of me. It's become a part of me. So that's a part of me that refuses to be Nigerian. And if all of us had that at the back of our minds, of course this country will be better for it. Of course. And there are no excuses for coming late. There are none. It doesn't exist. I don't believe there was go slow. Of course you knew there would be go slow. So why didn't you leave an hour or 2 hours earlier? I don't know. That's essential. What else? Ify, you have covered every single subject here.
Do you recommend this for young persons?
I would recommend this for everybody. And these are not just golden words for broadcasters alone. No matter your profession, most of this is going to work with you. Branding. Each individual to learn how to become a brand, no matter what profession it is you're doing. You know? And all these chapters that you have covered, I think will work for every single individual. I am irreplaceable. Who doesn't that affect? My friend, the boss. We have a friend-boss relationships in offices, no matter what kind of office it is. You know? Always
so
present.
I can choose not to come to read the news because my friend is the GM or my friend is the station manager.
Makes me laugh. Yomi Onobolu, one of my great bosses. That happened. Perhaps I shouldn't have mentioned his name, but that happened. He had this relationship with one of our announcers back then. She was supposed to, in those days, stations used to close. So the station would open in the morning at 6 o'clock. So, and this is the kind of boss that doesn't hide whatever he was doing. He would tell you. So it was at the general meeting that he told us this story by himself. This also person was in my office, in my house last night. Came to my house. She said she wanted to sleep there. She slept there. She was on duty this morning. She thought that because she was the dogga pata pata, she can be excused. It was he himself who wrote her query and sack letter. It was a great lesson.
Big lesson.
He said it himself at the staff meeting the following morning. I was a warning to everybody else who was there. Don't say because you are a friend to
the boss.
The job is the job. Do your job.
I'll do it.
It's important.
So tell us, what are you doing aside Jams FM in Ibadan? By the way, how is Jams doing in Ibadan?
Ify. Okay, I wanted to keep this quiet. I've retired.
You're what?
I've retired, and this is the first time I'm saying it. You're lucky. That's a new scoop for you there. I've retired. I've done 44 years of broadcasting. I've stayed at it all this while, longer than most of my colleagues. But I just finally got tired at the turn of the year. So I think I held my last radio show January the 3rd. And I gave it a couple of months. I decided to retire. The station is there. We have a board of directors, okay? And they're going to keep on running things. But I've decided to step back. I think I've done my bit for broadcasting. 44 years. It's been a lovely journey. I've told my stories. They'll keep on coming out every now and then, but I've done my bit for that part of my life. I've always believed that, like I told you, I hated being called the voice. So, and I've always believed, if I wasn't a broadcaster, I'd have probably been a writer. Because I've always also loved to write. And I've been doing a whole lot of writing. I've got 4 books ready. I'm trying to find the money to publish them. One of them is a novel. And I've given it to someone to write the screenplay for it. Because I want to turn it into a movie, if I can. So that's my next project right now. I want to see if I can publish that book, get some funding for the movie, and hopefully they both be released around about the same time. And I publish the other 3 books, and that's that. I have other passions too that God give me. I don't know how many more years I have left. I probably will be able to achieve. And heck, that's my life.
So when you say that you have retired or you retired in January, is it to say that we're not going to hear that voice again on radio?
I think I'm done with broadcasting. I think I've done more than enough. I'm tired.
You're stepping back.
Yeah.
Or you've stepped back as it is.
I have retired. Don't change the language. Language has a funny way of meaning different things these days.
Wow, this is big news.
Yeah.
Okay, so we look forward to the books. I'm not sure you want to give out the titles.
Oh, why not? One is called Voices in My Head. It's a whole lot of stuff I've been writing all over the years. I've been writing articles. Some have been published. Many haven't over the years. One is a book of poetry. It's called The Last August and 99 Other Poems, 100 poems in all. I've been writing poetry all my life.
The Last August.
And 99 Other Poems. The novel is called A Kiss Before We Die. Novel and movie, A Kiss Before We Die. And there's a fourth one, that's the most recent one, which I haven't yet given a title, but I'm working around the book, the name Chatterbox. It's a compilation of all my wisecracks and sayings over the years in broadcasting. But that's my working title. I haven't decided on that yet.
All right, so that one is just still pending.
Yeah.
As it is. Well, I want to say thank you very much. Any last words?
Oh, last words, I don't know. Keep on keeping on. Be the best that you can be. Never give up. Tomorrow will always be better than today.
We will. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Ify. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Belu.